you know what, have I just all of a sudden become like a human ATM? Welcome back guys to my channel, and if you're a new subscriber, please don't forget to subscribe and to like and to share. And then if you're a returning subscriber, please guys don't forget to like, don't forget to share. So let's get into the details. Today we just want to cover one of those topic which is a bit emotional sometimes, and it has a lot of negative connotations than positive connotations. So when you are growing up, especially from the developing countries, there's always a statement that is always said, you know, your mother or your father will always tell you, like, my child, my son, my daughter, always remember where you came from, right? So growing with, because this mindset is instilled in you, right? So when you have made it in life, maybe you are now not actually financially stable, you are just earning some dollars and cents, right? So you always feel like, subconsciously you always feel like you are obligated, right, to always remember where you come from. Like you always feel like, okay, I have to do something for my niece, for my uncle, for my parents, etc, right? That's remember where you come from. Or sometimes people actually tell you because they also feel like they are entitled. Like that's the other side. Subconsciously you can for your own, like, feel like, I have to do ABC. But then those people, like where you're coming from, like the parents, the sisters and everything, the uncles, the nieces, sometimes they feel like they are entitled because of this statement, right? Because they are also growing up and they were like, oh, because now you are doing this, we sort of like want to benefit, can you give us financial support? So it can be like on ad hoc basis where people be like, hello, hi, we have this problem at home, there's a funeral, or I want to apply for this, can I have this money, etc. All those are the things that can come along with does remember where you come from. So a lot of times people then feel like, you know what, have I just all of a sudden become like a human ATM? Like, am I an ATM where anyone can just come and be taking money, etc? Have I become like a family ATM? That's the other thing. So and then the other question someone would then ask is, has anyone has entitlement to my money? Like, am I even supposed to be doing this, all these things, right? So you realize we have all these questions. So this financial support obligation, this is what people then call like black tax in some context, right? Is either black tax or family tax or kinship tax. So you realize that this concept is mostly in the developing countries, for the reason being, you won't really find it in the developed countries, because in the developed countries you realize that they get financial support from the government, and then they also have strong social welfare systems. So you realize that that burden of feeling like, oh, okay, maybe we were born like in a family setup of maybe we are two, but then the other one doesn't really have enough for their upkeep, right? So you are not obligated to be looking at them, because the government already have set up systems where they can actually support that person. So things like education, health, like all those basic things, like maybe sometimes they also get even grocery, rent allowances, etc. Those people who are jobless sometimes, or who don't have anything like income coming in, etc. So you realize that in developed countries that burden is sort of like absorbed by the government and their social welfare systems. But then in developing countries you realize that even the basic thing that you can think of, like education, anything, health, etc., it's not for free. So at the end of the day, government is not coming with that third leg. So wait a moment. So sometimes when you are comparing, right, because I've noticed a lot of times people are so emotional because they don't understand the background of that thing. Because if we just take it this way, right, these ones, they are not giving any financial support, but then everyone is still well taken care of. So in our case, if we are not there for ourselves, no one is going to be there for us. But does it actually bring benefit, right? So if you look the other side, right, there are certain families, a lot of people, I think they might actually testify, where if one of the family members had not subscribed to this idea of black tax, you are going to realize that they were going to remain where they were, or maybe they're actually going to go back to negative, because they were going to continue in poverty. But then they've managed to come out of poverty because that person who made it in life had to take a hand in lifting others out of poverty. How did they do it? Sometimes they were paying school fees, sometimes they were doing, they were sending them colleges, degrees, etc, etc. And at the end of the day, now when we sue them as if they don't have these financial responsibilities, because there were a time when someone decided to actually give that third leg to someone so that they can stay, and as a family they've managed to get out of poverty. So you can see that there are some benefits in terms of black tax. That's the only way sometimes you can lift up yourselves, your family, your community out of poverty, right? And then the other side is also, that's how the only thing that you can build your own generational wealth, like, is a family, because you realize at the end, like 2 years down the line, 3 years, 4 or 5 years down the line, if you guys have managed to support each other, you have been the third leg of each and everyone, it means now each and everyone is now independent. And from there going forward, it means I'm now going to make sure that even when I'm doing my own family, I need to make sure that I have adequate provisions, not a situation whereby maybe my first child, my first son is going to be supporting the other ones, because now we have managed to lift each other out of poverty. So those are some of the benefits. So, but then we don't need to ignore the negative effects of black tax, because you realize, because someone is being entitled, you are obligated either way. So you realize that it's going to financially strain you, because it means outside your own living expenses, you also have another financial obligation. So at the end of the day, it also can hamper even growth for the other person. Like sometimes they are forced not even to be at the full of what they want to be, even if it means they wanted to proceed with education, they are going to fail to do that. Even if they wanted to also maybe get married, sometimes they're going to fail to do that. Even if they wanted to take a new career, a new job, they wanted to continue to pursue education, they wanted to go maybe for a master's, they are going to fail to do that, because they have this financial obligation that is also taking a lot of money. So that's the other side. So that's the reason why sometimes people then get emotional, right? But then pause, let's continue watching this video, because at the end of the day, yes, we have these consequences, we have these positive. We need to reach a point where we balance the two. We balance the consequences, and then we also balance the positive, so that at the end of the day, we still get a positive outcome. So you're going to realize that and sometimes this thing of black tax, it actually can keep you, the whole of the family, in poverty if it's not managed well, and also if it's actually not managed with wisdom, because you're going to realize that as I'm taking a lot supporting my parents, supporting my family members, etc., it means that by the time that I'm going to also get old, I'm now expecting my child to do the same, right, to me and also to their siblings. So if it's not well managed, you're going to realize that it also has detrimental effects. So there's need to make sure there's a balance, there's need to strike a balance. So now let's look at how best can you actually deal with this concept of black tax. So the first thing that you need to always remember is you need to think long term. So when you are doing this black tax, even when you are supporting people for the good cause, they also need to think long term, to say this is not an ongoing charity activity, right? So they need to make sure that what you are trying to do, this, like, have these conversations where everyone actually knows that what we are trying to do is that we are trying to lift each other out of poverty. It won't be there forever. Otherwise, if it's there forever, it means we are all going to remain in poverty, right? So people, we need to think long term. As part of thinking long term, start to think, okay, how best, because already my parents, maybe they actually don't have that financial stability. But then is there something that they can actually be doing, depending with their ages? You can actually, or instead of you continuously sending them just money, why can't you have them start a certain project where they can actually be self-sustaining? If your parents are already to the age where they are like already getting old, etc., if you are thinking in terms of long term, why can't you also add them maybe to your pension funds, pension contributions, like as part of your beneficiaries, right? so that at the end you are creating something that is going to be self-sustaining, so that you don't keep on like restraining yourself, right? So as part of you thinking long term, in as much as sometimes you want to create some self-sustaining project to other people, not everyone is born as a business person. So sometimes you are going to try and have them do a course. Maybe you are going to try and have them do a baking course, and then you'll be like, oh, now I've bought you like the basic stuff for you to start, can you now start baking? And then at the end of the day, you see them not also going to be able to be successful, because at the end of the day, not everyone is going to be a business person. So sometimes even if you are going to think long term, and then you are thinking to build something that is self-sustaining, you also need to just look at the person that you are doing that for. For example, you might realize that maybe it's not going to work still. Like, even if you try to create a self-sustaining, it's not going to work. In that case, I would advise, maybe if you can find maybe other possible, like if you can find an investment fund where you just say, you know what, this investment fund is going to be further. And then the second thing is you need to communicate, because there is this, sometimes the other side, they just feel a sense of entitlement, and then they are going to just relax in their life, because just thinking, you know what, this person is going to be doing. So there's a need for communication. Don't just use emotion, like, no, I'm not going to help you. Explain why. Can you actually explain to say, no, can we build something, my niece, my uncle, my brother, my what, etc. Let's try to build something towards something that is sustainable. So you need to communicate both sides, right? And then the third is be practical. Like, so there's this saying which says you cannot fully pour from an empty cup. So it means even you yourself, if you also don't have, you are also not going to have enough. So be practical in these things. As part of your financial planning, just make sure you are including everything. Get a budget from the other side. Try to avoid like those ad hoc things, right? For things like funeral, etc., where it's an ad hoc, like no one really knows, etc., budget for that, right? Be practical. Sometimes you also need to have those family members, maybe sometimes add them to my funeral assurance policy, etc. That is if it's possible, so that everything is very practical. Like, tell them, like, as you are also telling them, try to also get budget. I'm like, oh, okay, you need this one, but then I can only offer up to this. How best can we be managing the other difference? Can you also try to do this, so that at the end we also meet like somewhere in between? So be practical, incorporate everything in your financial plan. And then the other thing is, it's not every problem that needs money. Some solutions are not going to be money. Some solutions, think outside money, like provide solutions outside money. Some people, they just want to, maybe they've actually graduated, etc., but then they are still trying to say, oh, can you help me with this, etc., because they don't have any way to start. So can you link them to some other colleagues? Can you help them prepare CVs? Can you help them prepare interviews? Can you also help them to think outside their degree? Like, help them other things. What other things can they also do? Because not every problem needs financial support. Otherwise, sometimes we are stressing ourselves because we are thinking every problem needs a financial support. So think outside that. For example, like those things that I was saying, like sometimes people, like the whole family needs to be educated that you can actually subscribe to a funeral policy where you're just paying like $1 etc., like those EcoSure if you're in Zimbabwe, and all those other things where you just subscribe like slowly, so that if a problem is to happen in a family, you are not just caught unaware. Like, so you need to think outside, solutions outside money, right? Sometimes it's good for you to just give someone a fishing rod than to keep on giving them fish. So you also need to think solutions where you are going to provide for the fishing rod rather than to continuously giving a fish. So my thinking is, we should not just look at the negative connotations. Emotional in comparisons are not going to help in this thing, because emotions, they are going to actually lead us not to help, was to help. And then in terms of comparatives, we are going to compare with people that we are already not equal with to begin with. So we should never compare ourselves. It's our strength, Black Text, guys, because it shows how we have this collective spirit, because it's our strength. Let's embrace our strength, guys. So let's find ways. I cannot exhaust all how you can deal with these other situations, sometimes just find yourself a financial advisor and they can advise you better, because this is not meant to be a financial advice. It's just a financial teaching, but not really an advice. So you can find yourself a financial advisor. Okay, this is what I'm currently facing. How do you think, how best can you think I can really deal with this black tax thing? Let's always remember that those people that we are trying to compare ourselves with, it's not like they don't have support, but then they're just getting it from somewhere. So if we just ignore for the sake of comparing other societies, we are going to realize that we will always be backwards and will never progress. And also the other thing that I've just learned, especially if you are to learn from the nature, you realize that a mango tree, most of the times they produce mango, but then they don't really eat those mangoes. So I think it's also in us that sometimes we also need to be making sure that we are also supporting the other side. And but then, like I said, like, you cannot give more than you can. Let's look from those families that they literally started from no inheritance, no opening balances, but then they are now somewhere because they subscribe to this idea of black tax. Then yes, generosity is very good. Like, even the Bible says that generosity is very key, and I subscribe to that. So we always need to, the Bible actually says those who lend to the poor, they actually making a loan to the Lord. At the end, we win as a family. Not everyone, like, not anyone is going to feel like they are being dragged behind, and these ones feel like they are being ignored. At the end, we move together as a family, as a community. Otherwise, thank you so much. Let me know as well in the comment section, how do you guys deal with black tax, and how do you generally feel about black tax? Otherwise, thank you.